Hey everyone, today we're going to go over frames. Let's just get straight into it. Okay, so we've got our example GUI from the last episode here. Now let's go and add in a frame. Now what is a frame? A frame is simply a plain rectangle. Now you can add content to frames and like buttons, things like that. But on its own, a frame is simply a plain rectangle with no other content. Let's talk about frames. So as you can see, I've added a frame here and it puts it top left. Now let's put it in the middle of the screen. So you'll see we can snap it to the middle, and you have to add a frame under a screen GUI, otherwise it will not show. As you see, if I don't have it under a screen GUI, it's not going to show. And of course, if our GUI is not archivable, we talked about that last episode, then it won't show at all. So let's talk about this frame. Let's go under the properties. Now I'm not going to go over the selection image object, you don't really need to know that, that's more for gamepads and things like that. So we're just going to skip over the appearance section. Now under data, we've gone over archivable in the last episode. These three you don't really need to worry about. Now what does it mean by active? Because you can see if we have active disabled, we can still see the frame. So what does active actually mean? Well, active simply determines whether the frame or any UI element, because you'll find active on any UI element, it basically determines whether the element can take input. So essentially, if we have active turned off, we can't take any input on the frame. It's not brilliant for frames because you don't really tend to have inputs on frames. But say we had a button and active was turned off, we won't be able to click the button, if that makes sense. The anchor point, that's the origin point of the object relative to its absolute size. So we've got its size down here and its absolute size up here. If we change this size down here, say 0, 500, 0, 500, you'll see its absolute size changes with it, they're linked. So you're essentially, the anchor point is its position, its origin point relative to its size. The background colour, that's the colour of it, so let me make it a bit bigger. We can make it bigger by dragging up. We're going to talk about a bit about scaling in the next episode, but for now you'll see we can drag this up and we've got a frame here, the background colour. Let's maybe make it green. The background colour is straightforward. It's literally the colour of frame. So let's make this maybe yellow, I don't know. Now the background transparency, that's the transparency of it. So let's say we had this at 0.5. It'll be half transparent, 1 fully transparent, and yeah. Basically, it's a range from 0 to 1. You'll see the closer it is to 1, the more transparent it is. Border colour. If we have a little look around this yellow box, you'll see we have a very small border. Now, the border colour essentially changes this border. But before we go over that, let's talk about the border size pixel. That's essentially the thickness of the border. If we make this 10, you'll see the border is a lot thicker than it is 1. If we make it 5, and yeah, you can play around with the thickness. So let's make it 5, and then the border colour, of course, we can change. So if we make that like blue, you'll see the border colour is blue. Quite straightforward. Border mode, so we've got inset, middle and outline. Outline is where the border is on the outside of the frame. If we go for inset, the border is on the inside of the frame. And if we go for middle, the border is in the middle of the inside and outside. So it's kind of in the centre of the edge. I'm going to leave that on I'm going to leave it on outline. Name, once again, we talked about that in the last episode. Let's just call this example frame. Parent, we talked a bit about parents in the last episode. Position, that's the position in the screen. So as you see, we drag this around, the position changes, which is the easiest way, or you can manually change your position. If we open this up, there's an X and a Y. There's scale and offset. We're going to talk a bit more about those in the next episode. But for now, you just need to know it's best to have your scale up and offset on 0. Otherwise, you can get some scale problems, but we'll talk about that next time. Rotation, that's the rotation. If we set that to 45, it's going to be rotated 45 degrees. And this is anywhere from 0 to 360. As you can see, if we had this on at 12, it's going to be rotated by 12. That's quite straightforward. Size, once again, similar to position. It's the size. Now essentially, size constraint basically changes the size relative to the size of the parent. Now you don't really need to worry about this too much. It only works if your size is on scale and not offset, but ours was on offset. But we're going to talk once again about that next time. Okay, style. We've got different styles. You don't really need to worry about those. You've got chat blue, chat green. These are simply different customs, normally what you'll have it on. But drop shadow, they're basically presets for styles. Some are alright, like round, but round kind of doesn't work when you've got larger sizes. And Roblox square. They're the different frames that you can have. I mean, this one's alright, but you can't have your own background colour and things like that. Whereas if we have it on custom, it's however we choose to have it here. Okay, let's talk about visible. If it's off, we can't see it. If it's on, we can. That's simple. Okay, last time we talked about the Z-index behavior, which I just said you don't really need to worry about it too much. Now let's talk about the Z-index. Essentially, this is the order in which the GUI renders. So you know how when we talked about our starter GUI, we had the display order. Like this, we've got the layout order, which controls the order when used with the grid style layout. So basically, if we add a frame, we can add a grid layout, and we can control all the layout stuff in here. Now with our Z index, basically this is the order in which it's rendered. So if we have 2 frames, right, we've got 2 example frames, this one's over here and this one's going to be red. If we want this yellow frame to be in front of the red frame, this red frame's got a Z index of 1. So if we make this a Z index of 2, the yellow frame will be on top. It's essentially the sort order. Now clip descendants basically determines whether GUIs outside of the bounds of this frame should be rendered. So if we add another frame and we put it inside this frame and we have it like hanging outside here, if we go onto, and let's just make it another colour just to contrast, if we go and turn on clip descendants, because this frame's outside of the one it's in, it's not going to show anything that's outside, basically. That's what clip descendants does, which I think is quite nice. It's pretty clean. Localization, don't need to worry about that. Selection, we don't really need to worry about that. And attributes are something that's a bit more complicated and not you don't need to worry about. And that's it for frames. There are a couple of things we can do with frames, a couple of events and things, but that's more complex scripting and we don't really need to worry about that. Such as drag begin, drag stopped, which I think don't even exist anymore. I think they were removed or deprecated, the term. There's things like inputs, input began, input ended, mouse moved, things like that, but we don't really need to worry about those too much. So that's it, everyone. That's it for this video. Next, we're going to talk about scale and how to scale your UI properly so it fits on various devices. So thanks for watching this video, everyone, and I hope you found it helpful. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.